The time is now 6:01. My apologies for starting just a little bit late, but the Tuesday, October 15, 2024 Kingsport City Schools Board of Education regular meeting is now called to order. And we are pleased to have a Robinson student with us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. True.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. I want to welcome all of you in attendance tonight, everyone watching online. I would like to invite Lucy Marshall to come and join me. She is going to help us with the pledge this evening. Lucy is a Robinson student, and am I correct, 6th grade?
Yes.
Okay, so this time of year, you've been in school for a couple of months. What has middle school been like as a 6th grader, first time in middle school? Has it been everything you hoped it would be? What have you liked?
I really liked my sport that I play, and I really liked how it like band and all my classes that I have with great teachers.
I hear you got a great math teacher. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So sports you play. Tell us a little bit about that. What athletics do you take part in?
I do swimming because I love to be like in the water, and I love how it feels, and I've been going to the beach every year, so I'm pretty much used to it. Comfortable
in the water. Have you been a swimmer for a long time?
Yes, I think ever since I was like 5 or something. I really love to swim and hang out with my family. So yeah.
Very nice. So in band. So what has it been like being a part of the Robinson Band and kind of being now a part of the Kingsport City School Band family? What do you play?
I play the French horn. Yeah. It feels really good to be around people that play other instruments, and that the teachers are great in the band, so yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here tonight and taking part of your evening, now that we're back at school after fall break, to come and do the pledge with us and have a chance to meet us and introduce you to our online world and the folks that are here. So if you would all please stand, we're going to swivel back this way, and whenever you're ready, we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Lucy and Lucy's family, for being here. We are so glad to have you guys and hope you have a great year. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the agenda, which includes the consent agenda. Once the agenda is accepted, the board mutually agrees not to discuss any item of business or take any action that has not been accepted for the agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. If you would, cast your vote. Okay, the votes have been cast. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we will move on now to recognitions, and Dr. Brandon Fletcher will recognize our National Merit Scholarship Program commended students.
Good afternoon. Is it on? Okay. Tonight, the Kingsport City Schools Board of Education would like to recognize 6 Dobyns-Bennett students who were recently named as National Merit Commended Students in the 70th Annual 2025 National Merit Scholarship Program. This program is designated to identify and honor the top high school students in the United States. Approximately 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Although they will not continue in the 5 competition for National Merit Scholarship Awards, commended students placed among the top 50,000 students who entered the 2025 competition by taking the 2023 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test, which serves as an initial screening of program entrants. Merit Scholar designers are selected on the basis of their skills, accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous college studies without regard to gender, race, ethnic origin, or religious preference. These 6 students, if you wouldn't mind to come up whenever I call your name. Addison Arnold, Rishab Day, Kayla Lang, Lauren Maynard, Luke Musser, and Cam Sewell. Congratulations, you all. If you step right over there, she'll want to get a picture of you, okay?
Absolutely. Run up there and get a picture. It's a really big deal. Fantastic. And at this time, and I saw some coming in on 2 wheels. I've got a sneaky feeling that some of them are involved in some other activities, perhaps band practice, if I were guessing. Yes, okay. I have the pleasure to announce our National Merit Scholarship Program semifinalist. So at this time, we have 2 students from Dobyns-Bennett High School who have been named as semifinalists in the 70th Annual 2025 National Merit Scholarship Program. Those named as National Merit Scholarship semifinalists from Dobyns-Bennett are Liam Klug and Claire Lee. So if you all will come up, and I'm going to brag on you just a little bit. These 2 students will compete with the top high school students in the nation for approximately 6,800 National Merit Scholarships worth more than $26 million that will be offered in the spring of 2025. The nationwide pool of semifinalists represents less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors and includes the highest scoring entrants in each state. Merit Scholar designees are selected on the basis of their skills, accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous college studies without regard to gender, race, ethnic origin, or religious preference. To become a finalist, the semifinalist and his or her high school must submit a detailed scholarship application in which information is provided regarding the semifinalist's academic record, participation in school and community activities, demonstrated leadership abilities, employment, and honors and awards received. A semifinalist must have an outstanding academic record throughout high school, be endorsed and recommended by a high school official, write an essay, and earn SAT or ACT scores that confirm the student's earlier performance on the qualifying test. Over 1,600 students qualified as semifinalists. About 95% of the semifinalists are expected to advance to finalist standing, which will be notified in February. And more than half of the finalists will win a National Merit Scholarship, earning the Merit Scholar title. National Merit Scholarship winners for 2025 will be announced beginning in April and concluding in July. And I have a certificate for you, and I left them over there. So we'll go over there and get a picture. Congratulations, Claire and Liam, an outstanding accomplishment. That's all right. This is a time when members of the audience are invited to comment on agenda items. It is not the time to speak about personnel issues, as there are more appropriate ways in which these can be addressed. If you aren't sure how to do this, please ask one of us after the meeting. In your remarks, you may not refer to students by name without permission from the parent or guardian. If you would like to speak on a topic not included on the agenda, you are asked to submit your request in writing to the superintendent of schools at least 3 business days prior to the scheduled date of the meeting. If you would like to speak about an item included on the agenda for this meeting, it is requested that you first state your name and limit your remarks to a maximum of 3 minutes. And seeing no one, then we will move on. And we'll start with business item 5.1, the Tennessee Investment and Student Achievement Evaluation. Mr. Michael Hubbard and Dr. Brian Cinnamon.
Well, thank you this evening. We are bringing to you the TISA report. This is a template that is provided by the state. Just to provide a little bit of background for you, this is an annual requirement that we must do. And as a reminder, TISA is linked to our funding. So that's why it's, again, of vital importance with that. One thing I would like to remind you is there is a requirement of the grade 3 English Language Arts metric to reach 70% by a certain year. So that is included, and that is a requirement based on this template within that. Part of this is bringing this to the Board of Education, and we must get any feedback from the board, and then also it must be voted on and approved by the board. So what we've gathered together, and I'd like to thank Dr. Hampton and Dr. Cinnamon and Dr. Fora, who have worked collaboratively on this and helping. We've looked at this many times and many hours within that. So we hope you had the opportunity to look at this ahead of time. So therefore, we want to open the floor for any comments, any feedback on this that may need to be gathered.
Okay. Thank you very much for the detailed information, and that was provided to everyone in advance. So at this time, I'm going to ask, is there a motion for approval of the document to be submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other further discussion? If not, we will call the roll. Call the vote.
After that, I hit save. Wait. There, that's all. Did it show on there? There.
Okay.
And I'll take out that first one because, the second one, because it doesn't make it twice. There.
Okay. All right. The vote has been recorded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move to item 5.2, which is the approval of the proposed 2025-2026 KCS school calendar and designated holiday schedule for 12-month employees. Dr. Andy True.
Good evening. We did want to come back to you with a calendar and talk a little bit more about some of the discussions that have happened since we last met in regards to, I think, a couple of questions and comments you all had. Just had done some research on that and wanted to give you some more information. So we're bringing back to you a calendar that looks similar to what we have this year. and in many ways similar to what we had and what we talked about at the work session last month. Just to point out a few little highlights on that. This calendar typically for us is built around the concept of taking a 2-week winter break around Christmas and New Year's, and then really just simply going 90 days one way and 90 days the other way. And the way that generally works out is that we start the first week of August, first full week of August, and we're able to wrap up by Memorial Day. And so the 25-26 calendar looks similar to that again this year. A couple of things that we talked about since we met last was in regard to an in-service day in November. That was in a lot of ways we were looking at tying that to Election Day, and so we had done some research and communicated with Jason Boer with the Election Commission, which actually is something that by law we are required to do, is to coordinate with him on that with the Election Commission. There's 3 pieces to kind of election law, and when it comes to school calendars, and one of those is that we coordinate with him. And so we got some good information back from him regarding the 25-26 calendar. That date in November, there are no elections scheduled in November of 25, so we can go ahead and move that in-service day back to Monday the 3rd of November. And that is, again, a shift in what we've talked about before. One of the other pieces just to point out too in law, it's not in our policy, but it is in law regarding elections, is that by law now we are required, if we have a polling place in a school, we're required to be closed on a presidential primary or a regular November election. So that's something we'll need to think about as we move forward. That's adding the primary to the mix kind of happened in the last legislative session. Don't have that really to deal with this year in the 25-26 calendar, but we will in 26-27. And one of the things as far as the November 26 election, so we have those dates from Mr. Boer, and one of the things we really talked about internally, I believe it was your question regarding spring break and the location of it in March, whether it was better to move it earlier into the calendar or later. Had a lot of conversations about that with our administrative folks, with the curriculum and instruction folks, as well as looking at what the calendar would need to look like. I went ahead and kind of mapped out the 26-27 calendar. Not presenting that to you tonight, but just to kind of get a feel of what we may have to do with the calendar dates moving forward for consistency's sake. And so what we're bringing to you tonight, based on the conversations with our CNI team and the administrators, is to leave it in that last full week of March. They felt there was still enough instructional time when it comes to the window for testing in April, as well as when I was looking at the 26-27 calendar options, Easter moves back into that last Sunday of March in 27. And so kind of in wanting to be as consistent as we can, we'll likely be looking at having, again, with the days that we have in the calendar, to have Good Friday kind of wrapped into that spring break week, which again would be that last full week of March. So to be consistent and based on the feedback from our curriculum folks, we are coming back to you to leave with a recommendation to leave spring break as that last full week of March. So again, the calendar, a few little highlights. We would bring staff back for in-service in July of 25 on the 28th. Again, that last week of July for in-service and administrative days. First student day would be Monday, August 4th. We would take Labor Day in September, an in-service day following that to create kind of a 4-day weekend there for students. And then again, 2 parent-teacher conference days, one in September, one in February. Fall break, again, consistent with this year's and based on communication with our athletic department, we would take that the week of October 6th through the 10th. Come back from that like we did really this year with an in-service day, another in-service day that we talked about in November, and you can kind of see then 2 full weeks over Christmas and New Year's. And we'll bring back students on January 6th for second semester, and that would allow us to finish with our 175 instructional days with a half day on May 21st. So that's the fast forward version of the calendar. Just to kind of go over details, be happy to answer questions, or if you don't have questions, ready to present this to you for approval.
Did you just, when you touched on school closures for the presidential election, and you said primary, is that for any primary?
Presidential primary.
So Just closures for the presidential.
Correct, yeah. The
Either way.
two pieces in law are presidential primary and a regular November election.
So the recommended action then is to approve the Kingsport City Schools 2025-2026 school calendar and designated holiday schedule for the 12-month employees as have been attached. So
Correct.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
And second?
Second.
Okay. So if you would cast your vote.
That passed.
Okay, the votes have been cast. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Dr. True, if you would, just, we'll go ahead with the approval of policies on first reading, please.
Thank you very much. And we will go ahead and get this calendar posted on the website this evening, so that way parents can have quick access to it and start their vacation plan.
Wonderful.
Policies, again, coming back to you this evening with the policies that we discussed at the work session. This group really involves, this group of policies, Section 4, which really keys in on student issues. And so there are 6 of those this evening, all of those, again, being ones we discussed at the work session, and all of them being presented to you for approval on first reading, so they would, the revisions, because they're revisions, they would be adopted on one reading. So we can go ahead and knock those out tonight. That will just leave us then, we'll come back next week at the work session for a group of 5 policies involving instructional services. And so that then should, fingers crossed, end our policy work for the fall and allow us to kind of regroup as we go into the spring. So our policies that we're presenting to you tonight for approval, 6.203 school admissions is really tied together as well with 6.318 admission of suspended or expelled students. And that is a change in state law based on Public Chapter 721 that clarifies that principals can request information prior to enrollment that a student has been suspended or expelled, normally in another state, and have that information when it comes to making a recommendation to the superintendent involving whether or not to admit that student or not. So those are changes to 6.203 and 6.318. 6.300 Code of Conduct, that is a change that requires a principal to report to local law enforcement and superintendent of schools if an assault has occurred on school property. Again, that's a piece of our procedures already that we report that up the line. But a principal who has direct knowledge of an assault or battery endangering life, health, or safety committed by a student on property or gets a report of such action would be required by law and then now by our policy to report that to the superintendent and the police department. Zero tolerance offenses, 6.309. That really is modifying the section on threats of mass violence, and that there's a threat assessment team that will determine whether or not the threat is a credible threat and a viable threat. And so that adds that requirement that assessment take place before that situation is dealt with from a zero tolerance standpoint to determine if it is actually a threat or not. And so that's on page 2 on line 7, a slight revision to 6.309. 6.316, again, this one is involving suspensions, expulsions, and remanding. And again, that is basically to clarify that a threat of mass violence can result in suspension, and that if a student assaults an employee, that student can be suspended from attendance at school-sponsored events for the length of their suspension. So it means no football games, no basketball games, things that occur, in the evening, that they would also be suspended from those activities as well. And then finally, 6.4052, opioid antagonist. That is a change in public chapter that requires school districts to allow for the carrying of an opioid antagonist We cannot prohibit a student, employee, or visitor from having that while they're on property or attending a school-sponsored activity held at a location that is not on school property. So those are the 6 revisions that we're presenting to you this evening for approval.
You may not know, it might be a question for Mr. Nash, but do you know, I think this time last year, sometime, they started putting the epinephrine pens, auto injectors with AEDs in the schools. Is that where we keep
Correct.
the Narcan?
Yes.
Okay.
And one question, I think I know the answer to this, but just for clarification, on the 6.316, where if, no, I'm sorry, the assault, 6.300. No, it is
The reporting of the assault on
6.316.
300? Mhm.
No, it's 6.316. It's not the assault. It's the threat of mass violence. It says that the student can be suspended from attendance at school-sponsored activities. I'm assuming that also includes participating in
Correct.
school-sponsored
Yes,
activities as well.
absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Okay. Any other questions for discussion? Okay, then the recommended action is to approve these policies as presented on first reading. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, if you would cast your vote. I think the votes have been cast.
Yes, and I don't know, it doesn't just go back to the item and show without me going down.
Okay. The votes have been recorded, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, Dr. True.
Thank you very much.
We will move on then to item 5.4, which is the approval of mobile phone use in Tennessee Public Schools resolution. Dr. Hampton.
If you'll remember, we discussed this resolution in our work session in September as to whether we would like to submit for consideration and for support for legislation that would add additional teeth to policies and procedures regarding mobile electronic devices in the classroom during instructional time. And so Dr. True drafted the proposal for consideration. I think we had some discussion about that, or we did have some discussion about that, and we're bringing it back for consideration for voting. That would then allow, should we vote to move forward, we'll submit this to TSBA, and really it indicates a level of support that we have in moving forward with this piece of legislation, future legislation.
Also, we had talked as a board about trying to have a meeting with our local legislators before the new session begins, and so this would be something that we would present to them as well, given that opportunity, and we can certainly send it to them regardless of whether we end up having an in-person meeting or not. Okay, so then the recommended action is to approve the proposed mobile phone use in Tennessee Public Schools resolution. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, cast your vote. Okay, I think the votes have been recorded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We will move on then to our last business item. We are rolling right along tonight, and that is the consideration to enter into the social media accountability lawsuit. We had Mr. Shinoff, William Shinoff, who is with the France Law Group, attended virtually in the September 24th work session. This litigation is seeking to hold many of the most popular social media companies accountable to do more to protect our students. The mass suit addresses the social emotional impact of social media companies on our youth and their mental well-being. Just as a review, there is no cost to the district to participate in this lawsuit. If the decision is made in favor of the litigation, any attorney fees would be deducted from any financial award from the suit. So I think we discussed that in length at the September 24th work session. So with that, the recommended action then is to approve participation with this lawsuit. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's cast our vote. Okay, so the votes have been cast. The verbal vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and just for the record, Mr. Golden was unable to attend the meeting tonight, so just for everyone to know. And we have some upcoming meetings. This Friday, we will have our BOE retreat at 8 a.m., and that's held here in this room. So looking forward to that. And then October 22nd, next Tuesday, we will have our regularly scheduled work session. Some of us will be attending the November 7th through 10th TSBA Leadership Conference and Annual Convention in Nashville. And then our meetings in November will be the 12th for the regular business meeting, then the 19th will be our work session. So if there are no other comments or discussion, the meeting's adjourned. Roll Tribe.